we're going to get the meeting going. And then we're going to come back and say the pledge back there and then stay there while you guys do that.
You gotta be careful with your. Don't press that one.
He's doing this all on his own tonight
So we can time.
until later, so we gotta give him a little bit more time.
I haven't seen this side.
Fox,
Oh,
all right.
This is the, tell her
The
the
magic.
30 seconds to go, but
Magic.
and that's if somebody comes in and you're saying.
Oh.
I was gonna push that one for her.
No.
But please don't run it, actually, so. Hopefully.
When I get stuff, because I get updates every day on that, when I get stuff, I'll send it to you. So I never thought about that. Their superintendent is really, really sweet now. I know.
Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. Welcome to the Lake Bluff Board of Education regular meeting for March 18th, 2014. We have to appoint a temporary secretary tonight, Secretary Pro Tem in Latin. That's going to be Leanne Charlot. So, Leanne, could you please take a roll call for the board?
I'd be glad to. Mark Berry,
Present.
Leanne Charlot, present. Julie Gottschall, absent. Richard Haig, absent. Christine Lechinger, absent. John Rosen,
Present.
Susan Ryder.
Present.
So we have four. We've got a quorum. We can call to order at 7 o'clock. We have some incredible guests here tonight. Hopefully everybody at home is watching on TV. You guys are going to be live on television. And we're gonna rearrange the schedule just a little bit, and we're gonna jump down to our pledge and then the recognition of students. And Kelly Bay is going to introduce everybody. So the board is going to go around to the back to watch. Then we're going to ask the students to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. You guys want to start us? Go ahead.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hi, I'm Paige Soule, and this year, as part of our efforts to encourage writing, we've done some contests, and the school song contest fit right in with this, our goals, I guess. So students could write individually or with a friend, and the lyrics needed to be to the tune of Your Grand Old Flag.
In the end, this ended up being a collaborative effort, and parts of each of their songs were used. A special thank you to Dr. West and Mr. Hannes for initiating this contest and for their help with putting together the lyrics. Under the direction of Mrs. Ellis, we are proud to present to you tonight the writers of the new LBES school song. Here are Alex McCann, Annie Davis, Elizabeth LeGrand, Cece Carr, our big group from Mr. Kurtzell's class. Thank you, Mr. Kurtzell. Ben Krause, Sage Joseph, Tess Melbrook, Grace Thomas, Shea Scales, Maeve Bradley, Kate Johnson, Sydney Wang, Mary McHenry, and we also want to recognize three other authors to the song that are not here: Ava Black, Erin Earls, and Hannah Biankowski. So, without further ado, we present to you the LBES school song.
Kindness is our secret.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good job. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Really grades. We have one fifth grader in there, so it's mostly second
Like he really needs that. You can't just bring it. Oh my His wife is nice. Thank you for coming, everybody. Okay, we are going to continue with our session here and make sure that we cover all the agenda items. We skipped a little bit, but I want to offer the opportunity for public comment should anybody like to address the board. And if nobody would like to do that tonight, at this point we will offer another opportunity at the end of the meeting if anybody would like to come back. Also to encourage people at home to address the board either live or send us a note. Thank you. Skipping to agenda 6A. Do we have a PTO report tonight? I don't see a PTO.
No, we do not have
So
one.
it will be. No, Emily is
No, she's Alliance.
Alliance. Would you like to stand in for the PTO?
I'm okay.
Okay. We'll get that next time. Skipping item 6, going to 6B, we would start with the Lake Bluff Elementary School principal report, and tonight to deliver that will be Joanna Trahanis. Right?
Well, I will, we counted this as our.
Oh,
that's fine. That's fine.
that was good. We're keeping this one quick.
Yeah.
Wait till you get to the president's report. We'll talk quick. Nate, do you want to blame it on the little kids too?
Well, good. In fact, mine is a tough act to follow, but I'll keep it brief as well. Just a few things. Wanted to thank the PTO. They helped sponsored the Science Alliance presentation for the middle school. That was on March 7th. Close Encounters of the Chemical Kind. There were a few pictures that were tweeted out from that day, and it was an exciting meeting. The kids had a great time and learned a lot as well. On March 20th, Lake Bluff will be hosting the Lake County You Be the Chemist competition. So Lake Bluff Middle School, Thursday night. We have, I believe, 4 students from the middle school who qualified. There was an exam that they took, qualifying them for the competition, and we'll have students coming from all over Lake County to compete in the You Be the Chemist competition. Also, I wanted to thank Steve Slaughter. He came and presented to our 8th grade social studies classes to help them prepare for the stock game that they have coming up. He talked a lot about investing in the real world. They had some incredible questions. He had some great answers for them. So I wanted to make sure to acknowledge Steve and appreciate him taking time out of his day to come and present to our 8th grade social studies students. Coming up, this is tomorrow, March 19th. Our 6th grade social studies students are taking a field trip to Libertyville. They'll be participating in activities at the Feed My Starving Children location there in Libertyville. They'll be packaging meals specifically formulated for malnourished children, and those meals are going to be shipped all around the world. Over 70 countries benefit from the work that they'll be doing tomorrow. I look forward to joining the 6th grade students for that tomorrow afternoon. Have to mention the musical. Musical's coming up, and tickets are on sale. Annie this year. Don't miss out. April 11th and 12th if you're interested.
And people can get a sneak peek by looking at the video online of our last school board meeting. You get a little
Yes, indeed.
taste
Yes,
of that.
indeed. We had Annie and Daddy Warbucks here.
Yeah.
Yes, to perform at the last board meeting. They did an outstanding job. And also wanted to mention that the week returning from spring break, we have a select group, 38 students in 7th grade who will be participating in the practice park assessment. Looking forward to that and seeing how that goes. It's something that 38 kids in 7th grade will be taking. We're selected by the state to do that, so we'll be doing that. And then, of course, I want to wish everybody a nice spring break, a relaxing week off next week. So, thank you.
Thank you, Nate. 6D, the President's Report. We're going to go for as brief as possible here. I just wanted to show appreciation and congratulate all of the teachers and the students and parents at home for getting through the most recent round of ISAT exams. It's something that requires a lot of work, and we appreciate everybody's patience in getting through that. That's my President's Report. Moving on to the Superintendent's Report.
Wow, you guys have set a high bar tonight.
A low bar.
A low bar. High bar. I just wanted to again say our ISATs are over. Last year in the state of Illinois. Next year will be Park. I wanted to thank Nate at the middle school, and Paul McKinney is here tonight, who really brought a lot of structure to the elementary school and Park, and it was a very successful admission. And I wanted to assure all of you, as well as our parents, that we do use the data, and it's part of one data point in part of a student's profile, and that's very important for us because we utilize data to see all the different ways that we can meet the needs of our children. I wanted to mention I attended an NSSED Finance Committee meeting yesterday, and I'm very pleased to announce that the co-op is now putting together 4 different financial type scenarios based on what other co-ops are doing, and we'll have that available for us in June to take a look at. And so I really think that serving on this committee will provide the North Shore superintendents, who I really represent, as well as our district, some additional insight as to the co-op and how we can benefit from that. Last week I did Superintendent Corner, and we had about 10 to 12 parents in both the morning and afternoon sessions. And I was very pleased to announce questions ranged from a variety of topics. One of the biggest concerns that was expressed was a lot of our parents are really wanting a really rigorous science curriculum and wanted to know about the next generation of science standards. So we talked a little bit about that. It was very exciting to have groups of parents talking about what's going on in the community, what they like, things that we could be working on. It was very rewarding. And finally, spring break never seems to come on time any year I've ever been in school districts. The kids are ready, the parents ready, and I will also share that the staff is ready for a week off of rest and relaxation and spending some time with our families. So nothing better than being with kids, and I think you see that by our little presentation, both at this meeting from our kids at LBS and then last month with our LBMS kids from the musical. So we have a lot of exciting things going on. And that concludes my report, which is the longest of all of them.
Thanks, Julie. Now we're going to move to item 7A, and we have a guest speaker tonight to review the Lake Bluff Community Branding Program. That's going to be Mr. Drew Irvin from the village.
Hello.
Hey, Drew.
Hi.
Good. Are your kids in the school? Well,
Yes.
how much school? So,
I
village
work-
manager and parent of children in the district. Yes.
I hear about the science curriculum. I went about opportunity earlier in the meeting.
Go ahead, take it down.
Sorry, Drew, you had to be there last week. And
Too rigorous. No, I book into school. I've got a kindergartner and a fifth grader. So, but both love it. It's been fun. Love the new school.
Let me introduce you to Nate Blackmore. Your kid will be knowing him next year.
I think the relationship with Nate's going far enough. Yeah. So, thank you for the this opportunity. What I'm going to present this evening is a venture that has its roots in the village's 2016 strategic plan, and that was a document looking around the room. I don't know if anybody here participated in that discussion. There were some school board members that I think have picked up their plows and got off the school board. But I think there's a lot of people that were involved in this project, and what I'm going to try to do is keep with tonight's rhythm and go quickly, if that's okay with you. So what I'm trying to touch on really quickly is why was this project started, who was involved, how was the brand uncovered, what did we learn from the research, and what is the village's, the community strategic brand platform, what is the creative work and how it's going to help us unify the brand strategy. So I kind of touched on the why of this already. This goes back to the village's 2016 strategic plan, and essentially one of the objectives of that plan was for the community to have actually just a marketing program. And so the foundation of that was for us to understand what is our message. And so what this project essentially did was uncover that message. And so that's the why of it. That's the why we started the project, and what's the goal? What are the goals of the project? Essentially, are what's up on the projector there, and that is to drive business, sales tax revenue, relocation, both residential and commercial, which benefit this taxing district and other districts, as well as general consumers awareness and perception across community organizations. I don't know if, at least from the board member, who participated in the surveys. If you want to raise your hand, who participated in any level of surveys. So all of you, that's great. And I don't know if you did as well. Okay. But many people were involved at various levels, whether it was focus groups or the surveys or phone interviews, or there's a lot of ways that the firm that the village hired, North Star, out of Memphis, Tennessee, touched the various groups. And so they talked to community members, consumers, and other communities, which we kind of label as the competition, so to speak. There's a lot of different, I think there were 15 different instruments they used to reach out and dig into research and find out what was going on beneath the surface. The firm that we hired has done this for over 170 different communities, counties, tourism boards, and states. So this is their niche, and this is what they do. Some of the research I'll cover very briefly. The good news is we're in a very enviable position as we stand, and that's both locally and nationally. There's a strong brand advocacy, which means people are proud of where they come from, and when they come here, what they experience, and they cheerlead for the village, essentially. There is one element, and you can see in the slide here, we are exceptional in advocacy for living in the community, for visiting the community, but you can see where we suffer, obviously, is conducting business. So our reputation, that's one area where we can really grow. So the good news, bad news is these two drivers here are exceptional. In fact, I mentioned that North Star had done over 170 different communities and counties. We scored the highest ever in their ranking system in terms of their history of doing what they do in terms of measuring community brand advocacy. We didn't do so hot over here. So the good news is we did very well in two categories. I guess the other good news is that we can always do better. I pulled out from the research, and you should have all hard copies of this report now. I pulled out some of the, I'm not certain why that's not showing. All that slide there here. Well, it's in the report, but essentially there were two or three comments that I pulled out that were specific to the school district that I thought was interesting. I don't think it should be any surprise to you when you read this. This is information that I've often heard in, I guess, my 6 years of being a village manager here in Lake Bluff. Same comments is, we think it's great, it's lovely, I wish our taxes were lower. A lot of the other, some very complimentary information there about the teaching staff and about the new school. But in general, there's a lot of praise for the school district. You can see here, when surveyed, it's, almost 30% responded that good schools are a great asset in the community, one of the greatest assets. Likewise, what two things are most important to Lake Bluff's identity as a community? There's the schools again in the top. So this is the brand platform. So all that research that you have in front of you was distilled down to a single sentence. Granted, it's a run-on sentence for you grammar freaks here, but it is a sentence nonetheless. And but what this is the brand platform. So all of the marketing, this is the foundation or cornerstone block for which all the other marketing materials are built upon. But I'll read it quickly to you. It's for people who prize experiences over extravagance, Lake Bluff, Illinois is one of the smallest villages on the North Shore, nestled along Lake Michigan, just minutes from Chicago, where its small size, unpretentious charm, and easygoing spirit set it apart even in prestigious company. So you spend life laughing with the Joneses, not keeping up with them. So most people, and I'll say most people, the people that I've shared this program with already are merchants, the Chamber of Commerce, everybody, at least the feedback that I've received is that, wow, they nailed it. And that was kind of how, that's the general reception that we received. So there's a great acceptance to this brand platform, which is good because, again, it's the foundation for all the other materials. Let me read to you really quickly here. The brand narrative. So the brand narrative is the, I'll call it the poetic version of the brand platform. So it takes that platform and inserts a lot of language that is purposefully emotive, and it's supposed to draw you in to the narrative. So let me read that to you. On the northernmost point of Chicago's prestigious North Shore is a jewel of a village where the soundtrack of life is laughter. It rings out from children who pedal furiously across the village green on bikes. Like church bells, it peals from the restaurants and specialty stores that dot the downtown. It is an undercurrent in the shouted greetings of friends and neighbors on the streets or in their backyards. It is North Shore living in Lake Bluff style. Although the address is pretty prestigious, Lake Bluff is far from an exclusive club. It's a place where you can be casually comfortable in your own skin, and where newcomers to this tiny town of 6,000 are welcome to have as much of a voice in shaping the village as those who have lived here forever. Who you are as part of the community is the measure of your worth here, not what you do, which means at any given moment, you could just as well be talking to a leader of an industry as an industrious, skilled artisan. And it's our heartfelt belief that whether you've come for a day of fun or a lifetime of living, Lake Bluff is stronger for having you here. We don't take ourselves too seriously, perhaps because we realize that despite the sterling credentials and successful careers of the people who live in Lake Bluff, it is experience that gives life its meaning, not extravagance or prestige. Our idea of standing on ceremony is saluting the flags in our famous 4th of July parade. Business meetings are conducted over Lake Bluff lagers, and our only pretense is pretending to be someone or something else at the annual Halloween celebration. We love our dogs more than our possessions and value friends and family more, well, more than anything. Even businesses are a little more relaxed in Lake Bluff. Unique shops and restaurants are the cornerstone of our quaint downtown, and merchants there know your name as well as your favorite ice cream flavor. Office parks and shovel-ready development offer options for all types of business. And to help ensure success, we provide the support for businesses to flourish in style, from our highly educated workforce to incentives to help you get started. And all of Lake Bluff's businesses benefits are just minutes from the resources of the mighty commercial shoulders of Chicago, yet a world away from its stresses. We're grateful to be living on Chicago's North Shore, beautiful views of Lake Michigan, educated residents in every town, charm, influence, and affluence everywhere. But for those of us who've made Lake Bluff home, there was nowhere else on the shore we'd rather be, and nowhere else on earth we'd ever live. Some places just fit like a glove. North Shore life, Lake Bluff style.
You guys gonna hire the guy who does the Michigan commercials, the voiceover guy? That would be perfect for him.
That was pretty simple.
Yours was a good rendition, but I could just picture that guy saying that, or
We'll do that for the commercials.
You're that guy.
So you've probably heard a lot of these words sprinkled in that statement. So the brand vocabulary is just what you might think it is when you see literature or other materials from the village, it'll feature a lot of these words. At the end of the narrative, this was the strapline that was approved by the creative committee. That has, you'll see later on when I get through the presentation, that has a lot of legs and other applications. And there's the logo. You may have seen this already. It came out not too long ago. Now, I am not a graphics professional, but there is an artist named Michael Schwab that does a lot of illustrations, and this is in that vein. You know, if some of you are perhaps, but it's kind of a silhouetted style. It's kind of like iconic and classic, which we also feel is representative of the community. The colors in this palette you see here are a nod to the lake, to the summertime. You think of the green grass and blue skies of Lake Bluff playing in the village green. The greens also point to the village's tree-lined streets. There's a document that we have called essentially it's a design style guideline that we are providing all the merchants so they can take this graphics and the creative work and go out and use it to help them better their businesses, but also roll out the brand. So I'll show you some of these examples. Some of them are very creative. Again, this North Star community, our company that we hired, this is their niche, and it's just shocking some of the interesting ideas that they came up with that you'll read in the booklets. The first type of rollout they have recommended to us is this kind of board like you would imagine that you would see like at a summer camp or somebody's house, or come back and visiting a resort area, somebody post a picture or a card. Here's a sailboat, the village logo at the bottom. I think that's a cap from Lake Bluff Brewery. But the idea of capturing, you spent time in a community or a location and you want to reminisce about it. And so how do you best express that? And one of their ideas that North Star came up with is rolling out, actually handing out these types of boards in the community, and one of their actual examples in the book is doing it through the schools and having a competition at the schools where everybody gets a chance to kind of depict their own Lake Bluff style. This particular version is an ad that they're recommending for, we would call it like a new resident guide, or for like a newcomers club or somebody, we would hand these out to merchants. It'd be a folder, 8.5 by 11 folder, 9 by 12 folder that would hold 8.5 by 11 materials that we can hand out about all the festivals in the community, information about the schools, information about local government services, various groups, whether it be the History Museum or Park District. We can use this kind of a global packet for more residential purposes. There's a different version here, which is more towards economic development purposes, where we would hand that out at various professional functions or meeting with different developers who would be choosing to start a business in the community. So, North Star recommended a handful of things. I'll cut through some of those now. The first thing is assign a brand leader. Right now that's a need. We're looking maybe to hire somebody to help with that. It's a lot of work. My background is not in marketing or advertising, probably since that already. But it's been fun to do this project. So some simple stuff, put together this type of presentation like you see in front of you today. That's done. We're ordering the stationery. We're just getting quotes for it now, but we'll see some village stationery. The Park District is a partner with this project financially. And I would expect, because of their mass amount of marketing materials that they send out for the various programs, that they will adopt this logo in some shape or form. I think everybody's hopeful that the school district will do something too. I know you've got your logo and your tagline that you're using now as well, but maybe this can get woven in there somehow.
At least with consistency, like with colors and themes. And we have a tri board meeting on Thursday. We can talk about this stuff.
It is on the agenda.
Yeah.
Yep. You stole my thunder.
Sorry.
Some of the other advice they've given us is to do the easy stuff first. So there's lots of opportunities where people can be community groups, they can be merchants, it could be the park district, it could be the school district, can take this and run with it. This is that bulletin board project I was talking about. This is the example they use in Avasi, the local restaurant. They have various materials that people associate with the restaurant. And this specific idea was not unlike the program which I mentioned earlier, where the school can have it, where community residents can kind of think, what's your Lake Bluff style? How do you associate that? that theme with your life here in the community. This would be a business's kind of version of the same.
We should get some of those frames made up.
That's what
The actual frames, you know, like they'll get kids have a contest and make their own or something. Take
that is the recommendation.
Yeah.
And so we're actually getting quotes to do that.
Cool.
This is pretty easy stuff here.
Peggy already ordered those.
Well, so we have the vector files, and we've actually applied for trademark status registration for this creative work. And so by the end of this week, we'll be handing out the vector files so they can actually go do that.
Is there another link left somewhere?
Not in Illinois. Not in Illinois, there are. Yeah, there are. There's a Bluff Lake in Illinois.
There's only one lake left.
Thank you, Leanne. So this is the village's website that they recommended we do stylistically. So again, continuing that theme. This is one of the things they told us to do is to, beyond the physical world, is to use the digital world. Where presently the village has no social media presence, the Village of Lake Bluff as an organization. And that's something that we're going to do. And so they say do it, it's inexpensive. This type of community would really, I think there'll be a lot of traction here, so that's something we're going to do. It's a matter of time. Get more merchandise, just general ideas.
It's like a kid cut. Yeah, that's perfect.
That again.
Sure, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
I come from the business world, so when you do something like this, you always want to, at the end of the whatever period of time, determine whether the investment was worthwhile. Can you tell me, let's say 5 years from now, what measurable results would you like to see that say to you that what we did here was worth it?
Yeah. Can I come back to that?
Sure.
Okay. So this is another one of the recommendations is to partner with the private sector. They did a couple different stickers you can see on the car. This is, hey, you got this car dealership. Moving billboards or leaving that building daily. Take advantage of that. So build brand awareness that way. If you look at the bottom there, there's a little door claim that says dining Lake Bluff style. It's another one. Relaxing Lake Bluff style. Shopping Lake Bluff style.
Drinking liquor.
That's right. I guess you probably knows everyone knows. This is the packets I was talking about. This is for the economic development version for attracting business. There's the resident version of it, better visual. This is something that's Brad Anderson's card. You guys may know him from GGL. One of their ideas is, don't try to handcuff this to one particular organization. If the realtors want to use it and roll it out as well, let them do it. And that's part of it is that, it's like you can get the snowball rolling and just let it go. And there's been a great response from the merchants thus far. I mean, they're chomping at the bit to get this, to start getting product out there for the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
So some of this is, we talked a little about the digital, we talked about some of the physical. This is another physical form of the brand, and it's more, I'll say, infrastructure related. Some of their ideas are very bold, which we may not adopt.
We could use our frontispiece.
We kind of internally.
How could we work the
We could use our
frontispiece
frontispiece.
with OT school benefits?
We're volunteering.
Smart.
We are volunteering.
Where is available?
I hear that. Yeah.
No, we can donate it.
That's our smart bunch. So this is this is code word Yosemite. I don't know that this will actually happen, but the idea is that would this something like this look nice over the railroad viaduct? It's kind of that 410 Western Steel look. Well, could we take that and do some other application? Haven't thought about these schools, the frontispiece, but that's good.
We'll help you with that.
Talk about the signs around the community. Right now, if you drive around town, you have the gazebo logo.
I like that.
So I think there's a strong urge by the village board to replace those with this new look. That was another sample they gave us. That's a direct knockoff of the Lake Forest sign. That does not have the legs, so that one does. There it is. Propaganda is infiltrated everywhere. This is another infrastructure piece. This is something the village is currently conducting a parking study in the central business district. From time to time, and even now with more and more activity in downtown, people are concerned about is there adequate parking? What happens if this building turns into a restaurant and so forth? So we've engaged Rich and Associates out of Michigan to do a parking study. They're going to be finished by the end of May. One of the things we are fairly certain they're going to tell us is that we can do a better job of directing consumers and users to parking, train station, Walnut Lot, and help people find the right place to go. So North Star came up with this wayfinding signage. Likewise is something similar to this along the Robert McClory Trail and the other bike trails in the community. We get so many visitors come through on bicycle on the weekends, is getting them into CBD and taking advantage of our shops.
As we get older, we put our names on their John's house so we can find where
So when you get lost, you can
That could lead to sign pollution though. Might. That may be other applications going back to that one as well, right? Same theory, same issue, we're finding a way.
we did that too.
Okay. I'll skip some through this.
I want to place an order for a dog collar. Just
Okay.
That's pretty good.
So they also gave us some other ideas. This is some of their other clients. This is in
It's the new district.
Indiana. They've Columbus, Indiana. Homes of Cummins Diesel.
That's where my family's from.
Oh, well, there you go. Then you should be familiar with this logo then. So I think Chuck Taylor from Converse Shoes is from there. So they have a lot of, the C had a lot of residents in the community using this as C as the logo. So they came up with this idea of using this in a new rec center in their community, integrating it. This is another idea, because it's such the lush gardens around Lake Bluff. They said, nothing would stop you from doing a dog and a boy. Doing topiaries that way. And we thought that was clever. This is, again, Columbus. They said same thing with creating bike racks with the dog and boy for around the community. This is an idea they thought for the park district. Be interesting to have those types of fire pits. This is another one where they, I think this is a client that's in Georgia. So they have some flexibility what they can do in the street because they're not dragging snow plows across them. But come up with a creative way to maybe have the dog and boy across the street. What we talked about internally is it almost looks like a chalk outline. We didn't necessarily like that so
yeah,
much.
the dog and boy didn't make it to the other side.
Yeah. But creative thought.
There, look. That was your idea. It's already there. That's
Yeah. Mark read ahead. But they had, I won't go through all these, but there's a lot of different ideas that they came up with, and you can read them in a book, and it's very helpful. And again, as Mark said, there is the upcoming Thursday night tri-board meeting, and this is on the list. And one of the suggestions they do have in the book also is get together with other local agencies and find ways to get this woven into what everybody's doing.
Yeah.
And there'll be plenty of opportunities to do that. So
That's cool.
So to your question, so very early on, I had that chart. So from the business world, you know how difficult it is to sometimes measure what is the value of doing something like this. Because in, say, for example, if your client was, I don't know, Glad Bag, and you're trying to measure, we're trying to increase our product sales for women between the ages of 30 and 40 in Midwestern region, how do we attack that specific problem or concern? And this is not that, right? This is a much more blunt attack for marketing because it's trying to do many different things here.
But how do you know you're going to be successful?
So what they have is this brand advocacy comparison. It's generally measuring awareness, right? And that's what you're measuring, and it's very difficult to do that. Other than we have the baseline of when we started, so we have that, and then moving forward, we can do that at any interval we want. What makes the most sense? Is it a year from now, 3 years, 5 years, and measuring what is that, what's the delta? Has this moved the dial, and if so, in the right direction? Obviously for us, from the village's perspective, that's where we want to move the dial, right?
So are you focusing your efforts toward that end?
The village will, yes, and mostly, and I'll be more specific, along the Waukegan Road corridor, that area there where we have the opportunity to further raise awareness about that geographic area as a location to do business. There are vacancies there. There are buildings that are not, it's not Class A office space. It won't be Class A office space, but the idea of making, creating more utility there, and just raising awareness about it. A lot of the things that make that with the living in Lake Bluff and visiting Lake Bluff will help drive that. You have a lot of people in town that don't want to drive a long way to work, right? But the idea of establishing their business sometimes doesn't cross their mind. They want to be in the city or they want to be in other locations. We want to help raise that awareness. And I'll tell you another thing that was shocking to me, because I've heard anecdotally since coming to Lake Bluff that there are people in Lake Forest that don't know where Lake Bluff is, and that's a joke. That can't be true.
Well, they're over 85.
Well, but this research revealed that is that there are people that literally live in Lake Forest that haven't gone that extra step over Sheridan Road to find out what's north.
For those of us in Lake Bluff really don't care.
Well, I think there's some in the downtown and other businesses that do, because they want that business, right? That's their market share. So hopefully that answers your question. This is the barometer, the initial barometer. There's other ways to do it. There's other ways to do that, and part of their early recommendation about get a brand manager. There's another professional advertising agencies that have multiple metrics to monitor that, and so we're working with them to to nail down exactly one. But at least we have this baseline to start with.
I think it's good. One of the, as you well know, and I probably contributed to this piece of the survey, one of the biggest complaints is our taxes, our property taxes, when you compare them to other towns, are quite high. And one way to offset that, of course, is to increase the business side.
Exactly.
And I was hoping you were going to say that, and I know from talking with Christine and others in the village that you are focusing your efforts there, but that's going to change the perception on the negative side regarding property taxes.
Yeah, and that goes back to the very beginning of the slides, why we were doing this, and that's to drive sales tax revenue and drive business here, because that will lift the burden off the residential.
Right. And as the population ages, the difficulty is there are some of us of that age who find that we can't afford the taxes that we're paying when we're working. Mm-hmm. And you want a homogeneous or heterogeneous population, so you will tend to lose older people if we don't address these problems. And I hate to see that happen, because I think they bring a lot to the community.
Agreed.
I have a question and a comment.
Yes.
And I'm going to do the comment first. Congratulations to Lake Bluff and the community as being named one of the top places to want to live. Chicago Magazine this week. I was disappointed, and I have to get the article, but I was disappointed in the fact that when they talked about schools, they talked about Lake Forest schools. Mm-hmm. They didn't really talk too much about ours, which means that we have a lot more work to do on that end. But very exciting, so that's my comment. My question to you, Drew, is, and just something to think about for the future, the next thing I'm doing in the board meeting tonight is talking about our board goal 4 in communications. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that, and I think I've shared with you that's been missing here that I've had in my other communities, is a real estate packet. And there was always a real CD in it from the school district, along with many other things. And I know that that's part of our goal in the next 5 years, is to really work with the village and the park district to develop materials. But when we get going with the tri-district and all that, it sounds to me like the opportunity will be to work together to get that material together. Because I think we're missing out on families. They do call and take tours of our buildings, but I think that gathering that material into one place, whether it be a part on all of our websites or something that we can give to families, is a critical piece that we're missing. So, and you kind of addressed that in your presentation, and we're going to be
that's
interested
exactly
in
the
that.
purpose of that packet, is for that. very thing. And there'll be both the hard copy that we would get handed out, but it would be electronic versions of all the same on the websites, and we can have that capability.
Time-wise, about when are you looking? Because I've got to make sure our goal is aligned with that.
Good question. So what we've done is the committee for the village that has been handed this project to prioritize it is the Downtown and Development Committee. They met a week and a half ago, have gone through the 87 odd recommendations and have prioritized them. And so what we're doing right now is touching on the local opportunities first, and then we'll reach out beyond our borders with different activities, but that would put this type of activity within the next 12 months. So from a printing side of it, from a cost, we're getting quotes now, literally today, a second round of quotes for producing these materials. The good thing about these folders is that we can buy them, and that the way these are set up is the content can change, right? You can develop this and slide it in and out based off of updated information about the school. The school wants a new accolade where you want to update your materials without going out and print again. So this is kind of a lots of utility from this specific style, and that's why we picked it.
So I'm correct in assuming, which is kind of exciting for me, in that even though we'll be gathering the materials together, we can work with you to make sure that we're all on the same page with alignment and branding and getting the material together so it looks together.
Yes.
Okay, that's good.
I mean, that's the whole point of the community branding, right? Is to have one message. Again, I know you are using your children playing on a gazebo logo, and their tagline is
excellence in education, every child, every day.
Yeah. So
probably not the exact wording, but we're close.
So so the way it'd be nice to find a way, and obviously we'll have those opportunities starting Thursday, but start to find ways to
side by side
have this mesh with yours and the park district. I mean, I think the park district they have been waiting for this to get done to use this. So, but again, the more we can make it one voice, one image, one brand, the better it is for all of us to drive those numbers.
Well, I think it helps to communicate that we're all working together, which I think people would look for moving in or operating a business here.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, they talked about one of the brand vocabularies is small, and small is the new big. You can use that. But one of the things about being in a small community is that you can actually get that done fairly easy because we're a lot more nimble, right? And we're less institutional in how we do business. So that's the good news.
Thank you. That was great.
Good. Glad you like it.
I really like it.
Yeah.
That's great.
I know you have paper copies. I had a difficult time getting electronic copies to you, but we can get those to you if you want to peruse it.
Is this just for publicity point of view? Is this available on your website for people to look at?
It's not yet.
Okay.
So what we're doing is, like I said, we just finished the direction from the DEC on how to keep moving with this. So it'll start being put out there within the next couple of weeks. You'll start seeing more of it. We rolled it out at the Chamber of Commerce annual meeting a couple of weeks back.
If you ever want us to promote it, just tell them we can send there are about 10 people who watch our meetings, so we'll get the word.
Vice viewership.
10 people will.
That includes your family, right?
No, they don't.
So anyway, I'm happy to be here. And I appreciate the opportunity,
Thanks.
and I'm optimistic that we can roll this out together, and it'll be great for Lake Law. So
Yeah, that's
for the
right.
opportunity.
Thank you.
All right. Item 7B, board goal indicators. Jean's going to take us through that.
Okay. I am going to walk you through this. We're not going to I'll spend time more on questions. I want to get these up to the audience. So I want to remind you, we've gone through board goal 3 indicators. We've gone through board goal 1 indicators. Board goal 2, I was kind of helping us put some things together based on looking at the data from our 5 essentials from last year. So tonight we're going to kind of walk through board goal 4 indicators. I was kind of surprised at the volume of work, but we've already started on a lot of these. So, I'm going to start out with the very first one. This goal, I think, at least on my book, it was easier to work through and space out in the next 5 years. So when you take a look at this, specifically the first one, it's really develop and support strategies that foster that open communication for both internal and external stakeholders. And it talks about all the different ways we inform all of our stakeholders, staff, parents, community. And we have different indicators for each of the years. And different, if you look down at the schedule for reporting, most of our communication reports will be in June at the end of the year. There are things on here about the website. If you look way down at the bottom, and I'm just going to copy my former district in Palatine because I couldn't think of a more creative name. But I do think we need to begin what we can call there the District Advisory Committee on Educational Excellence. And that was stakeholders from the community, as well as realtors. We had representatives from the village, we had representatives from the Park District and the parochial schools. And really what we did is we talked about what was going on in the district. What were our accolades? What were we excited about? What were our challenges? And if you take a look at that, year one, which is this year, we want to host our first annual meeting and just provide some preliminary reports and start getting together a list of people that would be invited to this every year. It really fits in with Drew's presentation because he needs all of the community involved also. People need to be involved and hear what's going on in our schools. So this is an opportunity to reach out to really parents. We always will have 1 or 2 staff members, probably a representative from each of our schools, and then external stakeholders sit on the District Advisory Committee. So that's page 1. Any questions on that one? So it's really broken up on all the different things we're going to be doing. Questions on that one? Okay, if you look at page 2, and that's the only thing I need to go back, and we'll probably need to put page numbers on this. We, like the village, we've already started creating the word memo and the letterhead templates so that we're very uniform in our communications. Jill has done a great job of doing that with us, and you'll notice in the constant contact, the principal, both principals and the district superintendent all have kind of the banners on the constant contact. So we've already started doing that, and I was happy to see that in Drew's presentation because we're really all on the same page about that uniformity and alignment and systems type approach. And that really gets us to where the double line is when we move into 4B. 4B is talking a lot about regularly collect and report stakeholder input for continuous improvement. The first one is the easiest, superintendent corner. We started it this year, if you could see, and next year, and actually they're in the wrong spots, I need to all move them a year. Next year we're going to alternate because next year we'll have superintendent corner 1 month, the LBES corner or the principal corner at LBES once a month or once every 3 months, then the middle school, and we'll rotate. So through the course of 9 months, I will have 3 superintendent corners, Nate will have 3 of his, and Margaret will have 3 of hers. And we'll actually collect data and report out on things, number of people that attended, we'll take notes on what we talked about, and really look for trends. So that's superintendent corner. We really need to be looking at our 5 essentials survey data, which ECRA's helping us do, and be able to take certain questions out of that survey to answer some of the questions we're looking at here as far as parent satisfaction. And if we find that the survey doesn't do that, we may wind up having to develop our own. I actually have one that I used in my former district we could tweak. Gather community feedback. We participate in tri-board meetings. I put down for this year, we'll start coffees. We really will eventually probably wind up talking about a tri-board survey of some point, analyze that, create baseline data, etc.
Newsletter. Trevor newsletter should be on there.
Well, and that's later on though.
Oh, okay.
So I really broke it out into individual items because it's easier to take a look at. When you look at 4C, provide relevant, targeted, and transparent information to the community. One of our actions is develop relationships with local blogs, newspapers, issue press releases, explore the possibility of more exposure on Gazebo. Even though we didn't have anything this year on that, we already have our news feed on Gazebo. Adrian's been gracious enough to put us on with Lake Forest, and that was a really positive sign for us. Create transparent and easy to read information that's aligned to the strategic plan. That will be our dashboard, which will be unveiled or rolled out in April. Keeping in mind that every year as we review our data and our goals, we can always take things off our dashboard and add things to the dashboard yearly based upon data and what we're really focusing on. Make use of all our social media possibilities and technologies. This year we really need to be looking, and some of my columns didn't line up, because Facebook, we're going to try to get started before the end of the school year. We've got Twitter, we're using probably some of us more than others. The next thing under this is communicate regularly with the external stakeholders. The action was our tri-board newsletter. And really the other thing we need to be working on in this is we need to be identifying levels of interest for external stakeholders. What do community members really need to know about what's going on in our schools? What are they interested in, etc. So that kind of talks a little bit about some of that. The collaborative relationships, we really need to make sure that our partnerships with our set partners are established and we're regularly communicating. And these are listed here, but they're not limited to the Village, the Park District, Lake Forest 67 and 115, Lake County Superintendents. And once a year we need to be reporting out on, how often are we meeting, what are some of the topics that we're talking about, etc. One of the biggest things in 4F on our strategic planning day in August was really looking at a volunteer program for our schools that would utilize not only parents, but our seniors. And as you know, John volunteers in Waukegan schools, and I was very active in Palatine when we had our senior program. So this kind of lays out, we're going to begin the research. And I need to adjust some of my tables here because some of this is moved back a year. But I'll get that organized. But we're going to begin the research on the volunteer program, develop the plan. We're going to start a volunteer program in schools and then make changes, etc. Other partnerships that are very important are PTO, the Alliance, Charmed, Lake County. And we need to be reporting out on that in June, along with our communication report outs. Develop learning opportunities beyond the classroom. One of the items that the focus groups came up with in August were develop a career curriculum and really make sure it's fully implemented. And we've kind of stretched that out and moved that a little bit. Curriculum in the Lake Bluff community, we need to review Project Citizen. Revise any curriculum to meet today's needs, survey kids and parents to determine are we meeting the needs, do we need to make tweaks to the program, etc. Our government day, one of the goals was that we would start an annual or biannual government day so that our kids would have access and really work with government officials in the community. And I would imagine that board members would be included in this also. On the last page of this, as we're talking about maximizing effective communication and collaboration with Lake Forest, we need to be reinstituting our tri-district meetings with our board member reps. And then we need to be planning at least 3 tri-district meetings a year. If you remember, we had a meeting scheduled in January and we had a snow day. It seems so long ago that we had all that snow. And we have not rescheduled it, so that's something we're gonna need to get done. And possibly then in the third year, start talking about all 3 districts, all 3 boards meeting, and talking about matters of concern to all of us. And that, I think, is gonna need to be put a little bit higher priority based upon both our special education situation, and as we talk more about different partnerships we can have with Lake Forest.
I think we can even do that without having a specific improvement agenda. We could share training. You know, we do some of that ISB training stuff just as ways to get people to know one another.
And get to know what our districts are all about. I think that's a key piece, especially if we have Lake Foresters that don't even venture in our community. We really, and I would say the majority of Lake Forest has been in Lake Bluff. Many of the Lake Forest staff live in Lake Bluff. But we certainly want to maximize that relationship. I think that's very important. We need to have better communication with emergency messaging. One of the first things we're going to need to do is set up a meeting with reps from all 3 school districts, from the police chiefs in the 2 communities, and then our communications consultants, and just let's talk about the worst case scenario and how we're going to deal with that. Then we've got maximized communication between home and school. After you look at all these different items we're doing, how can we maximize the tools that we use to communicate? And one of the things we talked about was review the use of Alert Now, which we've already done, and make the possible switch to another company, which we're moving to School Messenger. We'll be bringing that contract to you in the near future. We also had to review the use of PowerSchool, because both InfoSnap, the program you'll be approving hopefully this evening, and School Messenger both use PowerSchool as a basis. So it was important for us to make a decision, are we going to stay with PowerSchool before really sticking with adding the other contracts. And then finally, better use by the staff of website capabilities. So it's really important that we utilize our website capabilities, that all teachers have websites. And they need to be uniform, so we can't everybody going rogue and developing kind of their own website. And so we'll be enrolling a plan for that in the near future. Now I will share with you, I need to work on this a little bit more because some of my years shifted. But at least all the indicators are spelled out for you. So, do you have any questions at all? This really kind of spells it all out.
I think it's really thorough, and that's actually a little bit of a worry. Are you able to manage all these different points? I mean, your name is on virtually every single thing here.
Because, we have a communications consultant that I work with, but we don't have a staff member, so that's why my name has to be on this one. But I'll tell you the other piece, Mr. Berry, is a lot of these are also going to be board members. So, as we look at tri-board and tri-district and all that, those are all going to be board representatives, and some of the reports are going to be from our board representatives.
Okay.
I'm just going to ensure that it happens. So that completes my report. That's not a threat, that's a promise.
Can I ask you a question? Some of these I recognize from the strategic planning, the early part of the process when we're gathering information. The items that you have in 4E about developing learning opportunities beyond the classroom, some of those I don't recall seeing, and I was just curious if you could say more about how those...
If you look back into the reports that we presented in October, they were on that. Because they specifically were talked about at the August 7th meeting. And that group came up with many of the different ideas that fit into these different subgroups. Okay. And that's where they came from. So they were actually presented in October, and I tried to look at everything and kind of pace it out.
Okay.
But I have to go back and play with my years, because some of the years I know I didn't put anything in year 1, and there's things on here in year 1, so I gotta move them back a year.
So these came from those committees that split up. Okay. All right, that's fine.
Okay. Any other questions for Jean on board goal floor? All right, we're going to move on to 8A and some action items. We are first going to talk about the approval of the student registration software called InfoSnap. May I please have a motion to approve the agreement with InfoSnap for the provision of online registration services, the details of which were provided to you by email, a Microsoft Word document. And so may I have a motion to approve that? Please.
So moved.
Second.
Can we have a discussion, Jean? Maybe you could just briefly, for the people, the huge audience and the people at home, highlight what this is all about.
Actually, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin. The only piece I'm going to share is that this has been vetted for well over a week between our attorneys and InfoSnap's attorneys. And Kevin has really been able to experience being the middleman in that, which I think has been a great learning experience for him. So with that, I'm going to turn it over just for him to give a very brief summary.
It was a great experience being the middleman. Both our legal counsel and the counsel for InfoSnap have, like Dr. Sophie said, reviewed the contract for well over a week. There were a couple of minor sticking points related to some recently passed laws in other states where InfoSnap operates. And that was a little bit of a holdup. We're really excited about the possibility of having InfoSnap in the district. Not only has it come down in price, it's also going to make registration a whole lot easier for parents and families. It will sync with our PowerSchool system and provide us with much more clean data, so to speak. So I did ask for your approval this evening.
And to be clear, do you have, if you hopefully have the number handy, the cost to the district?
First year is $12,400, and then the second year is a little bit over $8,000.
Okay. All right.
And eliminates a lot of manual work, manual entry work.
Correct.
And corrections to that manual.
Corrections.
Yeah. Because it really will make each family responsible to update their information in their own portal, which will be nice because it avoids having to make a call. Just log in with your password, go in and change if your cell phone number changes. And really, we're going to be communicating a lot more that way to avoid postage.
The only thing that I will add is that in the past, registration for the upcoming school year has typically started right after spring break. We're going to be pushing that back just a little bit as we talked with our office staff about why it had begun so early in the past. It came to our attention that it had begun so early because of the fact that there was time needed for manual entry of all of the forms and follow-up and all of that other stuff.
Inefficiency. Because of our own inefficiency.
That is exactly it. And so the registration process will actually start closer to May 15th this year, and that is not forecast to be a problem at all.
Just taking a look maybe a couple years in the future with respect to what Jean just said, will this platform, let's say, allow us to communicate effectively if we decide, for example, to go to electronic report cards? So you've captured the names, and I would like to think that we've thought about a platform where we don't have to recapture names. It's going to allow us to expand.
That's what PowerSchool does, right?
This product does not specifically do that. What this product does is that it captures all of our registration data and allows parents to correct it and make sure that it's clean, where it will help possibly in the future. And I've already talked with InfoSnap about this possibility is in the future with summer school registration process. So it may be helpful there. PowerSchool, on the other hand, like Susan just said, has the ability to send report cards electronically, verify that parents have received them. There's a little verification that we can get on our end, and some of our other systems do as well. So, for example, in our eSped online IEP software that we use for all of our individualized educational plans and 504 plans, it is possible, and we're not using it this year, but we will next year, to deliver all of those documents securely to parents through a portal. So.
Okay, cool. Okay.
I noticed that when we talked about this in the past, a couple of things. One is when we talked about it 4 years ago, it was like $35,000, so it's good to see that come down. The other thing is we've talked about the staffing pattern in the district office, and I just want to toss out there again, I think we need to keep an eye on the staffing pattern, because that, when we've talked about it in the past, one of the things that we said was, oh, well, they need to have X number of hours that really, over the course of the entire school year, is devoted to inputting the information, correcting the information, and then updating it as changes come about.
Dr. Sophie and I talked about that last week after the committee of the whole meeting, and we are exploring the possibilities for that. One of the things that Dr. Sophie cautioned me about is that the secretaries and the clerical staff in the district office, there are additional things that we are not doing right now, that because they're so taken up with other work, that we need them to be doing. So yes, we're going to monitor it and we're going to look for efficiencies, but we can't guarantee that over the long term that there's going to be fewer staff at the district office in terms of clerical.
But we will continue to monitor, because there's things that they aren't doing now that they could start assuming. Summer has been dedicated,
Solely to
especially with one of our
registration.
staff members, solely to registration. Yeah, so it's going to be very helpful.
Any other questions or concerns or comments? Okay, can we please have a roll call vote, please?
John Marsden.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Leanne Sherlow, yes.
The motion passes. Okay, we continue to item 8B1, approval of the 2014-2015 certified staffing plan. May I please have a motion to approve the 2014-2015 certified staffing plan as presented by the administration? And we also received some details by email today as well.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Can you brief
Yes.
us a little bit, Jean?
Item B1, and actually you should have received an email on this last Friday. I'm concerned if you just, okay.
No, I misspoke. We did receive it.
All right, because I know I sent it earlier. I'm thinking, did it take
No.
4 or 5? That would be back
No,
to
it
stamp now.
didn't do that.
Okay, so item B1. What item B1 is our current staffing level with an added percentage for our English language learner, with a small added percentage, and I'm not even talking about a full-time, I'm adding 0.45 for an ELL teacher, 0.33 of a gifted enrichment specialist.
So to translate for people watching, that means a third of a full-time position.
And what that really means is that we may be moving some assignments around within the building, but we do need some additional time in those areas. And so it's the current plan with those two additions to it, and that is B1.
Okay. And this is just a reminder that this is something we spoke about at length in closed session at our last
Right.
board meeting. Any questions or comments or concerns? Okay, can we please have a roll call vote?
Sure. Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Leanne Sherlow, yes. John Marsden.
Yes.
Motion's approved. Okay, agenda item 8B2, approval of early childhood staffing plan. Can we please have a motion to approve the early childhood staffing plan for the 2014-2015 school year as presented by the administration and also as discussed in closed session last week?
So moved.
Wait a second.
Second.
Discussion, please.
This is the approval in order for us. I'm actually going to turn this over to Kevin to make sure that it's worded correctly. Kevin, do you want to talk? This is the approval of 1.0 early childhood teacher, 0.5 early childhood special education teacher, and 0.30 kindergarten special education teacher.
Right. So currently the special education teacher who works with our early childhood program in the afternoon works with kindergarten students in the morning. So she's 0.5 kindergarten special ed, and so that 0.3 kindergarten special ed is where that comes from. Her position in the morning would then be taken up with the early childhood position full-time as a special ed teacher in early childhood, and then there would be the creation of a new position as a general education early childhood certified educator for the purpose of having a blended classroom to meet the requirements related to least restrictive environment.
Can you talk, Kevin, very, very briefly about what's mandated and what we need to be doing for kids and what age level you're talking about?
We are mandated to provide services for children with disabilities ages 3 until they leave us. But in this situation, ages 3 to 5, so pre-kindergarten, and we have to do it to the maximum extent possible in the least restrictive environment. Least restrictive environment starts in the general education setting, so to the maximum extent possible, we have special education children being educated with their typically developing peers. And so this classroom would be a blend of both children with disabilities and children who are typically developing. It might be perfect for a family in Lake Bluff who has some older children in the elementary school and maybe is just looking for another preschool option. It could be ideal for a child who is considered at risk, who we can sort of monitor and provide some early intervention services to, but the classroom will allow us to provide an early on curriculum that is appropriate for kids ages 3 to 5.
Anybody have questions? Okay, Leah, could we please have a roll call vote?
Susan Ryder,
Yes.
Mark Berry,
Yes.
Leanne Sherlow, yes, John Marsden.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Approval of social worker staffing plan, item 8B3. May I please have a motion to approve the social worker staffing plan for the 2014-2015 school year as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, please.
This is approval of a 1.0 social worker. We did gather more information on caseloads and social worker responsibilities, which I sent you on Friday, I believe. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Kevin to talk a little bit more about numbers.
And this is something we also had an extensive conversation about in the closed session as well. That's fine.
I gathered more information as you had requested and presented it to you. Our current social worker at the elementary school is quite busy during the week. A full-time staff member would be spending, we figured out today, 36 hours during the week is considered full-time. And and included in the 36 hours are mandatory lunch, break time, that are required both by law and the collective bargaining agreements. And currently we're at a little bit over 20, I want to say 28 hours of work that she is doing during the day. We've got a rapidly changing population at the elementary school, and would ask for your support related to adding this full-time position at the elementary school, as it's definitely a position that we need to better support our students.
So Kevin, the memo regarding this that we were provided did a very nice job of laying out all of the duties I think you were just referring to. Yes. That are consistently required of her. And then in addition, there are plenty of duties that are not scheduled duties. And the concern that was expressed last time we talked about this was that there is not an ability to get all of what she needs to do into the scheduled time.
Correct.
Leaving very little time to do anything else but essentially the bare minimum that she must do by law.
Correct.
And so that was at least one of the concerns that you'd raised. The focus on emotional wellness that this state requires of us is also perhaps different than what other states require.
Yes.
As well as different than what we grew up with. There's a decided focus on emotional wellness for which you need that social worker available not just to do her scheduled duties, but to provide that curriculum.
Classroom
instruction. There were a couple of things that you mentioned in the memo that were not being provided, that we have in our plan but are not able to do so. I can't remember where.
Related to Tier 1 curriculum, there's currently in our curriculum, it's called Second Step. There are
Second Step.
Something like
You said 23 lessons,
exactly,
of which we're only delivering 10.
10 and 12, yes, at each grade level. So we're missing quite a bit. And having taught the Second Step curriculum in my last district, I can tell you that when you can skip around to some extent, but there are nuances that are related to helping kids to develop consistent language around at early ages, around how to develop peers and good relationships. At later grades, to talk about bullying and what that looks like. There's consistent language that that the curriculum is built around, and without delivering it fully, as we're supposed to be doing, then we can't know that we're going to be expected to get the same results that we would if we were doing it fully. The other piece that is not being implemented right now is that, again, in my last district, we had worked with the Rush Neurobehavior Center on a executive functioning curriculum related to helping kids be able to better plan and organize. We've sent several of our staff members to some training. We have a full binder of curriculum materials that we would love to implement school-wide with our kids, and that we're going to be piloting with a couple of our students related to when we have our Google calendars in the next school year, helping them to use Google calendars to deliver some planning as a planning tool. We just can't do that with our current staffing level. It's just not, it's not possible.
I think our strategic plan focused quite a bit, as I recall, on ensuring that we have adequate focus on social and emotional wellness. And when I read that, what we were just now talking about, the Second Step curriculum, that's really what made me start thinking, boy, we're really not, unless we staff this position appropriately, not going to be able to do that.
Right.
You can write it down in words, but it's not going to happen without us having appropriate staffing. So
I would agree.
I appreciated the memo that you did. I thought it's done very well, and I can see why you're getting your doctorate. Put it together very nicely.
Good plug.
Thank you.
All
right.
He doesn't have it yet.
He's gonna. I read that memo. I know he's gonna.
For those interested at home, Kevin is defending his dissertation tomorrow.
Yes.
No pressure
No
there.
pressure.
And if I'm not successful,
You will be. I have no doubt. Thank you. I thought that was a very helpful
thank you. I
memo.
appreciate that.
I thought it was helpful too. In my experience, most environments would consider a social worker with 23 or 24 direct service hours to be very full-time, because that generates, every direct service hour is going to generate X number of, not direct service time minutes with collaterals and family members and so forth. So when I looked at that and saw that she had 24 direct service hours scheduled, and then there were several categories of things that weren't even included in that, setting up IEPs and being able to, it really is an overload. And you can see why that person can't cover all of that as one person. So,
And to just give an example of that, we have a student at the elementary building who his one thing that he got really excited about was crystals, like science crystals. And so, but we don't have any clubs, and it's not a part of our curriculum. It just is. And so with the help of the social worker and the student now have a crystal club that meets on Fridays in a classroom, and they have like 25 kids involved. And
Wow.
those are things that don't go on to her schedule on a day-to-day basis, but they're important to the kids. They're certainly important to the families. As you talk with that child about what's going on in his school world, that's the thing that's connecting him to Lake Bluff Elementary School. And those are the sorts of services that the social worker is able to and supposed to be providing.
That's the kind of thing we're talking about when we talk about social and emotional wellness.
Absolutely.
And it's usually such a abstract concepts, but that was a very good example of how we're reaching that child on a different level than simply an academic level.
Very much so.
That's good. Anybody else have questions, concerns, or comments? Let's do a roll call vote, please.
Mark Berry,
Yes.
Leanne Sherlow, yes. John Morrison,
Yes.
Susan Ryder,
Yes.
That's 4, motion passes. 8C, approval of tentative amended fiscal year 2014 budget. May I have a motion to approve the tentative amended fiscal year 2014 budget, please?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, I think, is Jane?
Jane will talk about that briefly.
We did receive a very large text in our board book about what it takes to amend the budget.
Yes, we have to complete the entire state budget form all over again.
Yeah.
And so that's technically what you're approving is that state budget form. And as we discussed at last week's committee of the whole meeting, we are amending the budget primarily due to the action that we took back in November to transfer $5.75 million from the education fund to debt service to then make a payment towards our outstanding bonds and kind of restructure those bonds. In addition to that, since we are amending the budget, we took the opportunity to include payment to the Park District because we were working on that intergovernmental agreement, and then we incorporated some federal monies that we didn't know about at the beginning of the fiscal year, so we put those revenues and corresponding expenditures into this budget amendment. With tonight's action of approving the tentative budget, the budget is now on display from now until April 22nd, at which time we will have to have a budget hearing, public hearing, at 6:45 prior to the regular meeting. And at the regular meeting in April, you will approve the final amended budget.
And if you could just address for the board and anybody listening, how unusual is it to amend a budget and how often is it done?
This is the second time in my career that we amended a budget.
But at other districts?
No, this district.
No, I mean at how often?
Well, I think it's not done very often. I do know there are districts who amend their budget every year.
Several times.
Yes.
But the purpose of this amendment was basically caused by the restructuring of bonds,
Absolutely.
which doesn't happen with every school district
No.
every year.
A lot of districts, or I won't say a lot of districts, some districts amend their budget every year because once they get through the biggest part of their fiscal year, they see how they're coming out and they amend the budget to kind of fit what they've done. That's their philosophy.
This isn't what we did.
I don't, no, that is absolutely
Right.
not what we do, and I would never advocate to do that. To me, a budget amendment should be a very rare occurrence.
And the error report popped out an error on the debt service schedule. What?
Because the accounting indicates that we can't start the debt service fund with a negative fund balance, which we do because of our modified accrual basis of accounting. We actually have money in the bank, cash in the bank, but our original 2008 bonds, when they were issued, the bond underwriters at the time took into account the early taxes that we get to make the payment due July 1st. But in our accounting and for our annual financial report, we don't recognize receiving those funds until after July 1st, even though we actually do get them. On a cash basis, it would be okay,
Right.
but on a modified accrual basis,
Okay.
it's an accounting function.
Okay.
Anybody else? Roll call vote, please.
Leanne Sherlow, yes. John Morrison,
Yes.
Susan Ryder,
Yes.
Mark Berry,
Yes. Motion is approved. Agenda item 8D, approval of the maintenance truck bid. May I have a motion to approve the bid from Rosen Nissan in the amount of $27,758.27 for a new maintenance truck. You were supplied the details of this bid in your board packet on page 26.
So moved.
second.
Discussion.
Jane.
Well, we got 3 bids and they were all, it was a very tight numbers. That's always a good sign.
Tight is good.
We did disqualify one bidder because they said the price was pending, and that's just not acceptable in a sealed bid environment. So Rosen is the low bid, and we're ready to issue a purchase order tomorrow if you approve.
And this is for a multi-purpose pickup truck type vehicle?
It is a pickup truck, and it will be very multi-purpose. It provides the maintenance department much more flexibility than
And
the bank.
between Rosen and Arlington, it was an apples to apples deal, so the warranties were the same?
Everything is apples to apples, absolutely. We were very specific in our business specifications, down to color.
What color is it?
We're getting blue.
Gotta get that thing with the kid chasing the dog?
Yeah, we're gonna go to know what's the wrong color. The magnetic.
It's part of the palette, though.
All right, may I have a roll call vote, please?
John Marsden?
Yes.
Susan Ryder?
Yes.
Mark Berry?
Yes.
Leanne Charlo, yes.
Okay, motion's approved. Item 8E, approval of custodial supplies bid. May I please have a motion to approve the bid from Peterson Products in the amount of $31,826.75 as the lowest responsible bid for custodial supplies, the details of which were in your board packet on page 27. Motion, please.
So moved.
I can second. Hold on, 1 second. Discussion.
So I'm just wondering why that it's Peterson rather than
Because we specified a certain brand for our products based on what our maintenance department, our custodial department uses and what they feel is the best. HP products substituted 37 out of 65 items with a different brand. And some of those are key items such as floor wax. That's a very important product for us. And our maintenance department feels that the brand they specified is an inferior product to what we specified in the bids. Because they are so close, I felt comfortable recommending Peterson.
Yeah, any idea what happened at MSC?
Yeah, they had a representative there for the bid opening, and his comment was, "We really messed up." Said, "Yeah, it looks like it." So
Okay.
he's going to go back.
Either that or he had a big profit margin built in.
Yeah, right. Actually, he made the comment, "I think we're paying too much," and I said, "Well, that's something to investigate."
Yeah.
But I was glad they were actually in attendance at the bid opening, so they could see.
Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Susan Ryder?
Yes.
Mark Berry?
Yes.
Leanne Charlo, yes. John Marsden?
Yes.
The motion passes. Now we move on to item 8F, the approval of policies for second read. May I have a motion to adopt policies 6:60, 6:250, 7:60, 7:185, and 8:30 as presented by the administration for second reading. It was found in your board packet beginning on page 28.
So moved.
Second.
Discussions?
This is a policy first read that we spent some time with. There were a couple changes that were made, and they have already been put into the policies, so the policies look ready to go. And we bring this to you for second reading for final adoption.
So this is for final approval.
Yep. Until we review it again, which could be next month.
Anybody have any questions? How about our policy people? You okay?
It passes muster.
Good. Can we roll call vote, please?
Mark Berry?
Yes.
Leanne Charlo, yes. John Marsden?
Yes.
Susan Ryder?
Yes.
Motion passes. 8G, approval of personnel report. May I please have a motion to approve, this is right?
Right.
May I please have a motion to approve the personnel report for March 18th, 2014 as presented by the administration and made available to the audience?
So moved.
And will also be made available to the audience tomorrow.
Second.
So, both.
So we have a first and second discussion, questions, comments? Roll call vote, please.
John Marsden?
Yes.
Susan Ryder?
Yes.
Mark Berry?
Yes.
Leanne Charlo, yes.
Motion passes. 8H, approval of a resolution. Can we have a motion to approve the resolution for dismissal of part-time teachers for reasons other than a reduction in force, as made available to you in your board packet on page 61?
So moved.
Second.
I would just
Discussion,
share
please.
as a reminder that when Senate Bill 7 and para passed, It redefined part-time as we know it in the world of education.
PARA is the Performance Evaluation Review Act.
Reform, yeah. Yes, thank you. And what it has really done is legally it's made it not mandatory, but very advisable by legal counsel to release part-time teachers that have not acquired seniority in the past without tenure, to release them every year and rehire them back based upon need. So we are starting that this year and are recommending the release of 2 part-time teachers with the possibility of rehire. We're just going to be taking a look at the numbers.
Anybody? Concerns, questions? Roll call vote, please.
Susan Ryder,
Yes.
Mark Berry,
Yes.
Leanne Sherlow, yes, John Marson.
Yes.
Motion passes. Agenda item 8I, approval of consent agenda. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda for March 18th, 2014, as presented by the administration and included in your board packet?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Leanne Sherlow, yes, John Marson.
Yes.
Susan Ryder,
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes. Motion is approved. Our nearly final agenda item of the evening is to offer again the opportunity for public comment. If anybody would like to address the board, please do so. Anybody? And also to remind people at home, if you'd like to address the board, please come to meetings or send us a note. Does anybody from the board have any questions, comments, concerns they want to bring up before we adjourn? Item 10, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very much at 8:35.